But the darkness was not to be his end. Question. Few are the paths for a youth in Bilgewater, and Pyke was no different. The path to his destiny began, as many others do, at the slaughter docks. Regardless of weather, heat or cold, each day spent in this place was the same. The district known as Bloodharbor had monstrous creatures hauled in for rendering in the butcheries that lined the water docks every day. Pyke's journey, like so many others, began here, and over time he became acquainted with the trade of butchering sea monsters. Gruesome work, meager pay. Seeing captains and crews exchange daunting carcasses for heavy purses of gold was not an uncommon sight, but after a time it awoke Pyke's desire to be something more. After a while, he managed to talk his way out of Bloodharbor and got onto a ship which went to hunt the monsters of the deep. After all, hunting these exotic beasts was bound to bring him more than just a few copper sprats he'd ordinarily get for butchering carcasses. To fortify this truth further, Pyke was one of few who dared to hunt in the traditional Serpent Isles manner, launching himself at his target to ensure tow hooks with his bare hands, and beginning to butcher the creature while it still lived. Such bravery and skill soon marked Pyke as the best harpooner money could buy. As he grew more experienced in this side of the trade, Pyke learned well which prey would bring in more profit than most. The jawfish, most desired by Bilgewater traders, this particular creature carried priceless sacks of sapphirite, coveted across Runeterra for various sorcerous distillations. Even a small sack of this glowing blue liquid would be valuable enough to pay for a ship and its crew 10 times over. Confident in his abilities, Pyke proceeded to search for the creature, regardless of his crew's doubts and inexperience. However, while Pyke had no doubt in his own abilities to overpower this razor-toothed creature, he would soon learn that it would take more than his own expertise to master such a challenge. As days passed in search, finally, a huge jawfish breached, opening its maw wide to reveal rows of sapphirite sacks. Without hesitation, several harpoon lines secured the beast, and although this had by far been the largest and oldest creature he'd encountered, Pyke didn't hesitate. He leapt into its mouth and set about his work, when he sensed a deep vibration beginning to stir from within the creature's cavernous gullet. Roiling bubbles broke the ocean's surface, and as if summoned, an entire pod of jaws began to push against the tethered ship's hull. Merely a setback, Pyke thought, but the captain didn't share it. Inexperienced and horrified, the captain lost his nerve and cut Pyke's lifeline in hopes of escaping. The last thing he could see before the beast's jaws snapped shut was the sight of horror etched across the faces of his crewmates as they watched him being swallowed alive. There was darkness, and despite his journey beginning where so many others also had, it was difficult to fathom this is where it would lead him, that this is what his death would entail. But the darkness was not to be his end. In the deepest fathoms of the unknowable ocean, crushed by the titanic pressure, and still firmly trapped within the jaw's mouth, Pyke opened his eyes once more. Blue lights everywhere, seemingly watching him, and then echoes, voices, distant at first, then suddenly so very close. Suddenly, all his senses became overwhelmed with echoes of something ancient and mysterious, flooding his brain, crushing his mind. Twisting it, then reshaping it under the visions of of all he had lost, of even the simplest of things being ripped from him from the moment of his birth, all ripped away to be given to others who already had too much. His mind reshaped into something new, and his body no longer anything resembling that of any healthy human, any living human. Much has happened since that dark day at sea. With his mind reformed, reshaped, Pyke's memories guided him down a new path, and with them a new hunger overtook him for vengeance and retribution. The depths of the sea would be filled with the corpses of those who had wronged him. At the time, Bilgewater didn't think much of the killings at first. Its people believed firmly that for such a dangerous place, the occasional red tide was nothing new. But as months passed and a pattern began to emerge, people began to talk. Barroom patrons whispered of a supernatural killer wronged at sea, gutting his way through the crew manifest of some damned ship called the Terror. Captains from many ships were found carved up and left out for the dawn. Once a mark of respect and celebrity, the question, "You a captain?" became a cause for alarm. Soon it was the caulkers too, and the first mates, merchant officers, bankers, indeed, anyone associated with the bloody business of the slaughter docks. A new name went up on the bounty boards, 1,000 krakens for the infamous Bloodharbor Ripper. Yet, although he recalled the name of the ship that damned him, the Terror was nowhere to be found. No one could ever find any records of such a name ever appearing at the docks of Bilgewater. Whatever it was that invaded his mind, perhaps it indeed gave him powers to seek revenge on those who had wronged him, or perhaps it twisted and reshaped his memories to see evil, betrayal, and the potential for revenge in the eyes of any out at sea. And so, a city that prides itself on hunting monsters now finds a monster hunting them, and Pyke has no intention of stopping.
Went too deep. Part of me is still down there, swimming. Used to call them monsters, but they changed my mind.